Finally, some information on how to introduce somebody. Got a lot of different phrases you can use here. Obviously, there's more than one way to go about it. First things first, when you first say like his name is or her name is, you might want to explain how this person is related to you, what kind of relationship you have. So they're giving you the phrases for he's a friend versus she's a friend. You'll notice the only difference between these two phrases is the addition of the letter E to the word a and the word friend. That's a way of making the word a and the word friend feminine. So if you have a friend who is a girl, the word friend looks like this. Whereas if you have a friend who is a boy, you'll be missing the E. Either way, if you introduce somebody and you say his name is, and you want to explain that he's a friend of yours, the way you say that in French is c'est un ami. If you introduce a girl and she is your friend, then you would say c'est une amie. And then another way to just say this is, instead of specifically his name is or her name is, just that common old phrase of this is Junior. In French is ça c'est. And notice that there's the ... there so that you can fill in an actual name. Finally, two different ways to say I'd like to introduce you to. And the reason why there's two different versions, you'll notice the only thing that's different between them is this second word here, is because in French they have something called informal language versus formal language. And there's a place for you to jot down what's on the bottom of the screen here, lower down on your notes if you don't really, or you're not really familiar with this idea, or you want to make sure you remember it for later. Informal language in French is language that you use either around people your own age or younger, or if it's an adult that you know really well, like a family member or something like that. It's basically you don't speak as formally and properly whenever you're around people you know. So people your own age or younger or family member adults, you can use the informal version of I'd like to introduce you to this other person. And in French, that's je te présente. Again, the ... there so you can fill in the name. If, however, you're introducing somebody to people you don't know, or maybe an adult like your teachers or somebody that you're not really related to or you're not really on that familiar informal basis with, then you need to use formal language. And the formal way of saying I'd like to introduce you to this person is je vous présente. So we'll talk a lot about the whole informal versus formal difference. If you mix it up, it's not that you're being rude, it's just going to sound really weird to a French person because you don't really know them like that if you're speaking to them informally when you really should be speaking to them formally, or vice versa. Last couple things on your notes page. When somebody does introduce you to somebody, you have to have something to say back. Enchanté is the way you say that you're delighted or happy to meet them. I know nobody really says delighted anymore in the English language. The reason why there's an extra E here in parentheses is if you are a girl and it's nice to meet somebody and you are delighted, you have to add an extra E. You're going to start to notice that the French language differentiates between masculine and feminine a lot of times by adding an extra E to it if it's a feminine person saying it or a feminine object, which I know you don't quite understand yet. We'll get there. But if you were a girl and you wanted to say that you were delighted to or happy to meet somebody, you would add that extra E. It doesn't sound any different when you pronounce it, but they wanted you to have it there on your notes, and they put it in parentheses so you know that if you need to add it, you should. Don't put the parentheses around it when you do. Just write the straight word with the extra E. Whereas if you're a boy saying this, you can drop that whole parentheses with the extra E and just use it in its masculine form. Finally, don't forget about what we learned with greetings. You could always just say hi to the person, and in French that is salut.